So now that we have thought about our big ideas, from our big ideas, threshold concepts, all of that stuff that we talked about earlier, we've written measurable learning objectives or outcomes. Now we're going to figure out, how do we know that they're meeting the goals that we have for them? How do we know they're achieving the outcomes? There are lots of different types of assessments. Take a moment, if you can, please, and type in the chat box, what kinds of assessments have you used in your course or courses in the past? We just want kind of a running list. What kind of assessments have you used in your courses in the past? What kind of tests? Oh, there we go. iClicker questions, multiple choice tests. Dawn mentioned a class that was project-based earlier. So project-based learning, so projects, interviews, fantastic. Ooh, video documentaries. I love video. Do we have anyone doing presentations, student presentations? Exams, exercises, posters, PowerPoints, posters, fabulous. All right, so when thinking about the different kinds of assessments that you're going to utilize in your course, there should be a mix of ongoing assessments that take place. You have diagnostic, formative, and summative types assessments, and you probably want to use a combination. Diagnostics are used at the beginning of the course to determine what students already know, so you can target more the instruction towards the areas that they don't know as well coming into the course. Formative assessments are done throughout the learning, while the learning is taking place, while the learning is forming. And summative, of course, is at the end, that summarizes their learning. So you're probably using a combination of those things. There should probably be a mix of informal and formal types of assessments. And you're probably doing informal assessments and not even realizing when you're having oral discussions with your class, you're making observations about the kinds of statements that they're making, noticing when there are misunderstandings of the content and redirecting them in the right direction in the discussion. So that's an informal type of assessment that takes place. The formal ones are probably the ones that you put in your grade book most often. There are individual and group types of assessments. So a portfolio or presentation might be an individual activity or maybe a group collaboration. And then there are self-peer and instructor types of assessments where a student is looking at their own learning and saying, this is what I've learned, this is how I've learned it, this is what I need to do to learn it better in the future. You have peer reviews and peer evaluations, and then most commonly you're probably using some form of instructor evaluation. So there is a mixture of assessments that you could use in your course. Thinking back to the idea of alignment and misalignment and what kinds of learning that you want to evaluate, this helps to inform the type of assessment that you select. For example, if a topic in a class is worth them knowing, it's something they can look up in a book online, there's a chart, something that they can refer to, some kind of reference material, then you may quiz them or test them on that kind of knowledge because they can get to it very easily. But if it's one of those deep core concepts that Diane talked about, those threshold concepts, it's enduring understanding that they need to be able to hang on to and be able to utilize for the long haul, then more open-ended types of complex assessments, performances, and projects that are very authentic are probably more well-suited to assess that kind of learning. Looking back at our example objective that we had earlier, anybody want to share a assessment that you would come up with for this particular objective? And you can share this orally. You don't have to type it. You can share this orally. So if you want to open your mic and tell us, how would you assess this example provided?
Well, I've already kind of told that for mine, it's more than likely going to be mostly project-based, but I also would want to do like a presentation at the end of a course so that everyone could see everybody else's projects.
Fantastic. All right. For the example on the screen, you could use a diagnostic at the beginning to share different types of examples and have them to maybe match, for example, the correct example with the correct type. We learn lots of different activities in this course, so you could have them do a matching activity as a diagnostic, and then later if you do a summative, then you can truly see how much their learning has increased or decreased, we hope not, but how much their learning has increased over the course of time. All right, when thinking about your course, what assessment methods and instruments you might use for the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy, which I think most of you all are familiar with based on our pre-survey. You've at least heard of it. Bloom's taxonomy says that there's different levels of learning that move from simple knowledge to comprehension, application, analysis, and synthesis, and then evaluation. And then if you are thinking about those different levels of the Bloom's taxonomy, this wheel here shows action verbs that you could include in your objectives or outcomes. And then the outside ring actually shows different types of assessment methods and instruments that you could use. Furthermore, there's a link below this wheel that's actually an interactive. You could go to this interactive website and click on the level of Blooms that you're interested in. So if you want, for example, Dawn, I hate to keep picking on you, but if you want them to be able to apply their understanding, then you could click on apply. It would give you some examples of different ways that you could assess application objectives. So we just want to share that with you. You can take a look at that when you have some time.